Hi, Cheryl. Hello? Hello?
Hi, this is Steve. I'm here.
Okay, I have you, Steve, and I have Cheryl, and then I have somebody on the phone whose number starts with 720-5604. Are you a committee member or a member of the public, please?
Hi, Nancy.
Yes.
Nancy, this is Cheryl. So I tried to log in on Zoom. Unfortunately, my computer is not set up. I just wanted to see if I could view the meeting, but I am a member of the committee, and that is my phone number that's
Okay.
called in.
Oh, now I see it because I wrote it down. Okay. So I can't bring you in as a panelist, but you're definitely should be able to participate via phone.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, sorry about that.
No worries. I'm sorry also. Thank you.
Hey, Cheryl.
Hi, Nancy. Go ahead.
Do you also have your computer on logged in?
I do.
Could you turn the volume and mute it and all of that? Because we're getting a lot of feedback. I think it's because you're on the phone plus you're on your computer.
Okay. So how does this sound right now?
Much, much better.
Okay, thank you so much. And I will mute my phone as well unless you need me.
Oh, no, you can, no. You're good for now. It's just the computer.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Are you there, Marcy?
I am. Hi, Nancy.
Hi there, good. All right, I'm glad this worked out for you.
Yeah,
So
me too. It's taken a while to figure
No,
it
you're
out.
good.
But
So we have Steve and Cheryl and you on the meeting so far.
I'm sorry, who, Nancy?
Stephen Ward is on the committee
Okay,
and he's in the meeting already, and Cheryl Stewart.
okay.
So there's 11 of you, just so you know.
Oh, they're all 11 made it today
No, I'm just saying there's 11 appointed on,
on the committee.
yes.
Okay.
And we have 3 of you so far, but I love early birds. This is great.
Yeah, no, I agree. And thanks, Nancy, for
Yes.
trying to help me out. I
Oh,
got
you're
a
welcome.
friend to help me out because I am not a computer geek at all.
Not a problem. So I'm going to go on mute until I see somebody else, guys.
Okay, thanks, Nancy.
You're welcome.
This isn't working.
Hey, Maria.
Hey there.
We're here.
Okay.
You just can't see us.
Yeah.
We're having a party here.
Oh, good. I'm gonna see if I can make my less light in the background.
Hi, Carson.
Hey, Nancy, how's it going?
Good, I can barely hear you though.
Is that better?
Oh, much better, thank you.
How are you doing?
I'm doing good. We're just waiting for a few more people to come in. So we're just kind of staying muted until the meeting starts.
Okay.
Good evening, everybody. This is Maria DeAndre speaking. We're going to wait. It's 6 o'clock right now, but I'd like to wait a few more minutes just to see if we get a few more people coming on. All right, so we'll reconnect here in just a couple of minutes. Thank you. All right, good evening, everybody. It's 6:02, and it looks like we have 8 people from the committee here, if I look at this correctly. So again, my name is Maria DeAndre. I'm the Director of Public Works for the city, and I appreciate and thank you for participating in this, not only the committee, but working through the issues with, if you have any, with Zoom. So not everybody's has done that before. So thank you everybody for using the technology as we navigate our way through COVID. I would like to recognize Nancy Fenton, who's the Executive Assistant for Community Development. She's been helping me out tremendously to get this meeting set up, as well as communicate with some of you and do some training on Zoom. And then also Tanaz Sarbaz, who's our temporary admin person in Public Works, who's also participating in the call so that she can learn. So first things, we do have an agenda, so I will pull that up if I can find it. Let's see here. There we go. All right, so here's can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I've got the agenda pulled up here from the city website. So first we'll have the call to order. So Nancy, if you could read names and just reply and say aye or yes that you're in attendance.
Frazier,
Here.
Thank you. Marcy Brown? Here, let me unmute you, Marcy. Oh, I can't. Marcy, you have to unmute on your side.
Okay. Can you
Okay,
hear me
okay.
now?
I can. So are you present?
I'm here.
Thank you. Carson Green?
Present.
Brenda Hubka? I didn't see her. Steve Ward?
Here.
And Felicia?
Here,
Could you pronounce your last name for us, please?
it's Labe.
Leib. Okay, thank you. Christine Brinker?
Hi, everyone.
Matt Adams?
Here.
Cheryl Stewart is on the phone. Cheryl, can you hear us? I can see her. And I'm sorry, is it Kanji?
Yep, that's right. Kanji Kalanabe. I'm here.
Okay, here, thank you. And then Dane Borman.
Present.
All right. 10 of the 11 are present.
Wonderful. That's a great turnout. I appreciate you guys making the time and modifying your schedule to make this night work. So we will be later on in the agenda scheduling our next meeting and then talking about kind of the overall schedule and see what works best for folks. So with that, I'd move on to item number 2, which is appointment of chair and vice chair. And so this is a new committee. So this isn't run by staff, but actually by the members of the committee. And so I'd be open to anybody who wants to nominate themselves or another person for either chair or vice chair. Is there any interest in that?
Yes, I would like, this is Marcy. Can you hear me, Maria?
Yes, Marcy.
I would like to nominate Carson Green for chair. I believe because he sits on the committee, I'm sorry, the committee that he, I'm sorry, I forgot what I was going to say, but he's on the code committee, which I think would be helpful.
Yeah, code enforcement, I believe.
Yes, I'm
Mhm.
sorry.
No, you're good.
I'm stumbling over my words. It's my first time on Zoom, so
No, you're
excuse
doing
me.
great.
So I would like to nominate Carson Green, and also because I would like someone with an open mind that listens to both sides of the issue. So thank you.
I'd like to nominate Christine Brinker for either chair or vice chair. She has a wealth of knowledge in environmental issues. She's also helped craft state legislation regarding energy efficiency and other matters. She's certainly open-minded, easy to get along with, as I'm sure we'll all learn throughout this process. Very smart, very capable, thinks of things that we may not have thought of yet.
Thank you, Jeff. That's very nice. I was going to nominate you, but that's okay. I don't think I could take on chair, but I could possibly do vice chair.
Anyone else interested either in nominating themselves or another member?
I'd just like to say it's kind of, I don't know, to me, it feels a little premature even to nominate and choose chair and vice chair, since, I mean, we're all new to each other. At least for me, everyone on here is new. And I appreciate the nomination, Marcy. And yes, I have chaired the Board of Adjustment and Appeals previously, and then I'm vice chair of the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee now. And certainly am open-minded about this whole procedure, and I'm looking forward to participating and figuring out what's best for all of us as citizens long-term for the city. But I do want, I realize someone has to run the meeting, but it's also kind of, it's soon to be trying to pick who's best to represent the group.
I hear that. It would be nice to have some more introductions. I don't know everybody here.
Okay. Do you want to, is there a desire maybe to postpone to the next meeting and I'll run this meeting?
Yeah. that
Or
sounds good.
what is the preference of the group?
I would
So,
be okay with that. I agree
That'd
with
be okay
Carson.
with me, too.
I think that's reasonable.
okay.
Yeah, I do too. And maybe at some point in this meeting, we could all do a quick introduction and about
Sure.
our interests, et cetera.
Yeah, why don't we do that right now? And again, because this is a new committee, you know, typically we always have a chair and a vice chair. So we're just, or it's ongoing. And so there's always somebody new. So this is a little bit of new ground for all of us. But let's do the introductions and just give a little bit more information on why you're interested. I'm just going to work down my list here of the people I see on the screen. So would you mind starting, Christine? You're at the top of my list here.
Sure. Yes. Hi, everyone. My name is Christine Brinker. I've lived in Inglewood for 9 years now. I'm in District 1. I absolutely love Inglewood and the history of it and the direction it's heading both. I work on buildings energy efficiency at a small nonprofit called Southwest Energy Efficiency Project. So that dives into kind of technical and policy issues both about the built environment.
Jeff?
Sure. Well, welcome to my laundry room here where I hide from my 2-year-old to try to have Zoom meetings. My name's Jeff Frazier. I've been in Englewood about 4 years. Love the city. Love, you know, there's a lot happening, a lot of great people who've been here a long time, as well as newer. I've been involved and met a lot of people through Citizens Alliance for a Sustainable Englewood. We've been following this process closely. I'm glad we have a group of citizens together to look at any RFP proposals that come in and see what makes sense. I'm very curious about the numbers. In my day job, I'm an attorney. I've worked in-house as well as with outside counsel. I've actually have experience reviewing for specific private groups, trash hauling contracts. I've terminated them, negotiated them. So I'm eager to get into the nitty gritty of any potential proposals and what that would mean here.
Great, thank you. Dane?
So I'm a chiropractor in Denver, but I've been living in Inglewood for the last 11 years. We actually lived in Inglewood almost a decade before that as well. I've been kind of following the trash possible changeover for a while now. I'm interested to see how we can improve Englewood, make it look better, function better for a lot of our residents, because I feel like trash is always a big thing up on Nextdoor all the time. People are always talking about problems with the current system. And I think people are at least interested right now in changing over to see whether we can get some stuff like large item pickup and even composting. We're definitely interested in the composting every spring and fall. It feels like we always have a ton of different yard waste that we just toss into the garbage. And I feel like that's filling up our garbage containers, but also our landfills with unnecessary things. So I'm super excited to see what this committee comes up with, and just interested to hear everybody's perspectives. Can't wait to meet you all more.
Thank you. Carson?
Hello, I'm Carson Green. I've been in Inglewood 20 years. Love it here. It's a great place. I'm interested in this subject. You know, I'm kind of like, I very much get the environmental benefits of fewer trucks. And for me, I see this as an opportunity for the city to utilize its leverage to, you know, make a really good deal and get better service, you know, for us as citizens, preferably for a better price. And if we're not able to do that, then, you know, I don't know that it's necessarily the right move right away, because there, you know, a lot of people are disappointed with the way the current services have dropped alley service and how difficult that is for a lot of people. I know that's a big one. I mean, obviously from the response from the public meetings and the survey that came up a ton, that's a big one for my neighbors and for me. Anyway, I hope we can come up with a way to do this that improves everything in a way that's not going to like incrementally get worse either, like, you know, worse, less quality of service and more cost. You know, I want to make sure we make good long-term decisions.
Great. Matt Adams?
Hey, everybody. So I'm a COO of a company called Survey Studio. We do pre-installation kiosk surveys. But in a former life, I was involved in both RFP responses and vendor management and contracting. So I've lived in Inglewood 7 years with my wife and 2-year-old. You might hear in the background here if I'm not on mute. We've had at least 3 different trash services. We are among the people that were frustrated by the alley pickup situation. And we'd love to get compost and additional services if possible. So really, this is my first time on a committee like this. I'm just interested in kind of seeing how this goes and learning more about the proposals. So
Great.
learning more about all of you.
Good. Thank you. Marcy, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thank you. I've been an Inglewood resident for 30 years, and I have followed the one trash hauler pickup for quite a while. I was at 2 of the 3 meetings, and I would like to find a long-time solution to some of the problems others have spoken about. However, I also feel that we have to maybe make a compromise for seniors, for people who are disabled, and basically for people who are not going to be able to afford the price tag on this. But as the meetings progress, we'll get to that. And but I'm very interested in trying to find a solution that will make most people happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Felicia?
Hi, I'm Felicia. I am a social worker, and I've actually only lived in Inglewood for about 18 months, and I don't have any committee experience or any previous participation in anything like this, but I am just really interested in ways that we as a community can kind of invest in more sustainable living, and I feel really passionate about the environmental impact that all of us have just with everyday living. And so I think this is a great way to kind of tackle an issue and kind of weigh the pros and cons of making a change to not only impact the environment in a better way, but also hopefully be a little bit more fiscally, I guess, responsible for the citizens of Inglewood. So yeah, excited to participate.
Great. Steve?
Howdy, everybody. I'm Stephen Ward. I've been in Inglewood since 2011. I currently serve on the Budget Advisory Committee, which is how I became involved in the single hauler question. I'm looking forward to seeing some of the proposals and how they come in because I was involved in the early stages of this initiative as well. I agree with some of the questions and concerns about the possibility that the solution adopted might not serve everyone equally. So I'm also interested in talking through some of those issues as well. In particular, the question of alley versus curbside pickup and quality of service are my probably 2 biggest things aside from budgetary factors.
Okay. And Kanji?
Hey everyone, I'm Kanji Kawanabe. I've been in Inglewood for about 3 years now with, got 2 little ones running around as well, so you'll probably hear them. This is my first time in a committee of this or this community organization. I think it's too early to even put out solutionings, but I did appreciate reading through that RFP. I thought it was very thoughtful, so thank you for whoever put that together. I think it was holistic and taking a look at the different perspectives that are coming through this. So my day job, I do recruiting operations for startup companies out in San Francisco. So have some experience doing the RFPs process and looking forward to working with you all.
Wonderful, thank you. And Cheryl, can you hear us on the phone? Cheryl, are you there?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you. We can.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me in this technology. I'm Cheryl. It's really nice to hear you all, and I can see some of you on the screen there. I have a deep interest in environmental issues. I have a major in environmental science, and I am really excited to be on this committee. I have never been on a committee like this before. I am a Denver native, and I've been in Inglewood for about the last 8 years. So I'm really interested to see what we can do on this committee.
Wonderful. It's so nice to hear that there's so many kind of new people to the process. So, you know, we as staff, you know, really try and outreach to the community to try and get more people involved. And it's great that there's some first timers with us, and hopefully this will maybe make you interested in some other committees that would be available once this, once we're done with our effort here. So great to have you all. It's really exciting. So the next item we have, so let's come back to this for the chair and vice chair. We can talk about that at the end of the meeting, is when you guys would like to do that. Right now we'll go to public comment. We did receive one written comment a couple of days ago, I believe it was, or yesterday. And is there anybody else on the line who wishes to give public comment?
There is not anyone on for public comment.
All right. So I'll open up here. This is an email that we received from Queen Dickerson. And I'll open it up so that you can read it if you haven't, and then I'll also read it into the record. So this was received on Monday, July 13th at 2:16 p.m. Again, the resident is Queen, or C.A. Dickerson, and the subject is single hauler trash, no public comment, trash committee meeting. And the text reads as follows: there is no valid reason for single hauler trash. I need my glasses on. Nor is it a critical issue, nor will it solve any perceived problem. This is a specious solution in search of a problem. Claims that it destroys streets are false. A completely full garbage truck is 1/10 the weight of an empty concrete truck or those hauling construction equipment and cranes. Proliferation of haulers is also not a valid argument. Currently, most of the small haulers have been bought by Waste Connections, and only 3 haulers seem to be active: Waste Management, Waste Connections, Republic. On my street, Waste Management makes a minimum of 5 trips on my street on trash day and another day. Waste Management, Waste Connections cannot go down alleys because of the size of their trucks and the overhead collection dumping, which damage power and communication lines. Single hauler will require one company to invest in far more and larger trucks. Recycling is a joke. Glass, plastic, and paper cannot and are not recycled. Glass needs to be separated unbroken and clean. Paper cannot be contaminated, and plastic also needs to be separated and clean by recyclable type. Many of us do not generate enough trash to pay for weekly pickup or even monthly, including recyclable materials. We should be able to contract with whomever we choose by our needs. Having lived in more than one city that chose single hauler without consulting the citizens and over the majority objecting, I know the pitfalls. The only advantage was to waste management. The price went up exponentially and made our utility bills unacceptably high. Service was down and ate up police resources and taxpayer inconveniences and administrative costs, whether we needed it or not. Preferred provider and opt-in are the least objectionable schemes. Not even Boulder has single hauler trash, though they do tax haulers and require minimum level of service. All right. So let's see if I can go back here. All right. So with that, we'll move on to new business. So really the purpose of this meeting again is to kind of give you all some background who haven't been as involved in the process all along. So I am going to walk through kind of the elements of the request for proposal. We'll look specifically at the cost elements that they will be proposing on. I've also got a couple of maps, and then we'll go over the survey results if you haven't seen that. We did a pretty short, but I think very widespread survey back in October, November of last year. And so we have the results summarized for you. And I think there was some great outcomes from that. So with that, I'll stop sharing this and then pull up the request for proposals. Ugh, got 50 things open here. Sorry about that. Let's see here. Actually, I can. I'll just open it from here. All right. So you can see this is about 70 pages. I'm not going to read this to you. Just going to hit the highlights, and then feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. So this process started, and I think Steve kind of alluded to that. We started this really at the request of several different boards and commissions. So it was the Budget Advisory Committee, ETAC, which is the Englewood Transportation Advisory Committee, and then Keep Englewood Beautiful. And so they were all interested in this from different angles. And from ETAC, it was really, how do we reduce the wear and tear on the street? How do we make things safer? Keep Englewood Beautiful was interested in the aesthetics and cutting down on just the amount of garbage in general. We get a really high amount of especially furniture dumped in the alleys. And when it's in the alley, if there's no identifying address or name on it, code enforcement cannot go back. So now it's in the public right of way, and then it's up to Public Works to go and pick that up. And that's really how I got involved, is that, we don't really have a specific department that deals with trash other than code enforcement. And so it's fallen to Public Works to really advance this and see if there's interest in moving forward. So that's started probably, late 2018, early 2019. And so staff went to the city council, and there was interest from city council in moving forward too. They had heard from a significant number of people, just in one-off conversations here and there, about the need to at least investigate something different for trash collection. So they asked us to start working on this process. We did form a small subcommittee that was made up of members of those different organizations that I talked about, as well as CASE, which is the Citizens for the Advanced Sustainable in Englewood. What's the A again? I forget, Jeff.
Citizens Alliance for a Sustainable Englewood. Good try.
Like that. Citizens Alliance for a Sustainable Englewood. So they participated as well. And that's really where we got feedback from you know, on how to structure the RFP, what things we should be looking for in terms of cost elements of the, you know, what should we ask for in a sense. Then we did 3 public meetings, one in July, August, and September of last year, where there was great turnout. I think that first meeting, and I know a couple of you were there, I think we had almost 200 people at that first meeting, which was wonderful. Again, a lot of interest from the community. We took notes and we answered questions, so that's all online. And that information from those 3 meetings was really helped us formulate the items within the RFP as well. And then you'll see the results of the survey, which was also an element in that, in terms of what do people want to see, what would they like to have as part of, you know, that service if it was offered to them. And so, like I think somebody mentioned, the large item pickup was a huge interest. Doing the even household hazardous waste. The way we structured this was also that you would have to go down both the alleys and the streets, because of course we have some people who's, and so alley pickup is a must. That was a big deal for a lot of people. But also, you know, we have homes that might have alleys, but their garage faces the street. So what's most convenient for them is to pull it out from their garage out to the street, as opposed to trying to wrangle it around their garage to the alley. Or it's so steep or whatever, there's different physical constraints that, you know, we just can't use the alley. So the way we structured the RFP was that it gives you the option of doing that. Now that's probably going to add to the cost, as well as to, you know, just the amount of driving up and forth, back and forth. But that's something that, you know, was, again, from the committee, was very important to them to consider. So I'll just start walking through this a little bit. I did also just, I met with several other communities who are considering this. So we've talked with Lakewood, let's see, who else? Golden, Lafayette, and a couple of other communities. I reached out to Highlands Ranch too, which recently put in a program, and got their feedback. Then I've also met with each of the, I sent a letter to each of the waste haulers that are licensed within the city, including some that we just know of that aren't licensed, and offered to meet with them in advance of the RFP coming out, just to get their thoughts and answer any questions that they had. So we have tried to make an effort to really reach out to both the vendors and other users and people who have been through this process already.
And did you have trash haulers respond to wanting a meeting with you?
Yes, so we met with Waste Management, Waste Connections, Republic, and I believe there was one more. I think, or maybe that it was those 3. Yeah, I think Alpine declined. That was one of the companies we sent, and they wrote back and just said we're not interested. So. All right. So one of the feedback, is there a question? Okay. There was, you know, some of the feedback that I got from the haulers was all, how do we need enough time to put all this together. So we did give them a good 5 weeks, which is longer than our typical process. Let's say for a construction project is usually around 3 weeks. So we wanted to give them plenty of time to respond to this. We did have a mandatory pre-bid or pre-proposal meeting. 4 companies attended that, the 3 that I mentioned, as well as a 4th, which is the, they're based out of Canada, but they're starting to move their way in different areas of the country. And I'll find that name. I'm sorry, I don't have that off the top of my head. So we did have 4 companies, though, participate in that mandatory pre-bid.
Is that meeting recorded?
No.
Are there notes from it?
We took the attendance and some brief notes. Yes, there was a couple of questions that came up.
Can you share that with us?
Sure. Okay. I'll pull that up because I think that has, no, I don't know if that has the name of the other company, but we'll find that. So the idea would be, the other kind of good feedback that came from the companies was that, you know, we don't want to start this too quick. So we go through the RFP process and then it's like, oh, in 3 weeks, you know, we're going to implement this. So the idea would be is that, and I'll go through the timeline in more detail here, but that it wouldn't start until about June of next year. So we're giving ourselves just under a year to go through this process. Our desire would be is by the end of the year, we'd have selected a company if we move forward. And then that give them about 5 to 6 months to, you know, start the communication process, start ordering the vehicles, and for us to communicate with citizens as far as how this changeover would occur. And so we know that we need more than just one piece of communication or one method of communication to reach out and explain that to everybody, because it is going to be it would be a big change.
Can I clarify one point, Director D'Andrea?
Yeah.
I just want to clarify that everything we're doing here is to gain information to present to City Council. We're not making any decisions ourselves. And City Council would determine if they vote, if citizens vote, if it gets thrown away or whatever. I just want to clarify that process.
Yes, thank you. Yes, the idea would be is that we, or you, the 11 of the committee, would really dig into the details. And so you would come with a recommendation to council as to next steps, where do we go from here? And then they would take your information or your recommendation into consideration, but they could also go in a different direction. So I see the 3 options really being, just like you mentioned, we either move forward with the proposal, or we don't move forward at all and kind of stay the course, or we, which is an option, we could send it to the ballot for the entire population of Englewood to vote on. That would be probably too late at this point to get it on the November ballot. So it would have to be November of 2021 before that would occur.
Maria, this is Marcy. Is there a reason why it wasn't put on the ballot in the first place?
This was the desire of council, was to go this route at this time. I don't think, again, that's off the table, but there was not, you know, we really wanted to get the proposals, look at them in depth before that decision was made.
And can I just ask you one more question?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feel free.
How many trash companies are in the Denver metro area that could serve Englewood?
I believe we sent letters to 7 different companies.
Okay.
And again, some of them were licensed in the city and some were not. So we basically did a search on Google search of waste haulers to identify that list.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I talked about that, the timeline, and then this would be for a 5-year service term. So this is very typical, is that it's not just going to be for 1 year, because they invest quite a bit of cost up front in providing the containers. The company does own the containers, and so again, they're distributing them and delivering them to each household. So there does need to be basically a time, and the cost of the trucks. Usually they're hiring additional personnel. And so all of that investment, they need to capitalize that or depreciate it over a certain time period. And so we're giving them a minimum of a 5-year service term to accommodate that. Is this too much detail or not enough, or is this okay? Is everybody bored yet?
Perfect.
No.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's great.
Seems good.
Okay, thank you. Just a note here, we'll see what we get, but this confidential, there is a section in, if they want to write in anything confidential, when I deliver that to you, I'll have to stamp that or write in there confidential so that we're not sharing that with other people, the public, or the other companies. So just know that there may be some of that from some of the respondents. Let's see, there's a lot of language in here.
Maria, could I just interject one more time? I'm sorry. You
fine.
said it would be a 5-year contract. Now, is the price of what we would be billed, would that stay the same in 5 years, or would it continually go up?
We did give them the option. So it was basically it can go up, but no more than 3%, or if it's less, what's called the Consumer Price Index for the Denver metro area. So there's a published, basically how much goods and services are increasing. It's called the Consumer Price Index. I'm not sure who prepares that, but it's kind of a metric by which you can go to. And so it's basically the lesser of the two. So it's either 3%, or if the CPI was, for example, 2.5%, that would be the maximum that they could increase.
And would that be every year?
Yes.
Maria, I wanted to point out in the RFP where it does say that 3%, it wasn't clear because it's spelled out as 4%, and then it's written as 3 with the number. So there's a conflict in that sentence.
I clarified that in an addendum that it's 3%. So that all the companies are aware of that.
And has any work been done to like sort that out to what people are currently paying? Is there any protection for citizens to keep the cost at, say 20 to 25, what the bulk of people claimed they were paying right now is?
Well, I think when we see the cost data, we can calculate that. So let's assume the worst, if it's 3%, we can see what that'll be each year for the next 5 years. And I think that's one of the points to evaluate as we move forward. If that's at the end of, or in year 5, if that's so great, then maybe it's not worth moving forward. So
Sure,
I think we need the dollar amount before we can assess that.
But we can assume that some of these might be losing their cost anyway to keep up with inflation over 5 years. We can't predict the exact amount that would be.
Yeah, I think that percentage allows for, unknowns. We know that costs continue to go up. So I think we're acknowledging that, as opposed to making them assume what their costs will be in 5 years. And, they're going to be conservative, of course. And so hopefully we can kind of eliminate that and make it more apples to apples. All right. So as I mentioned, we had the mandatory pre-proposal conference here on June 23rd. We did receive a couple of questions at that meeting, and then we also received in writing by June 29th. We got, I think there was about 14 questions, which I can also, then we responded to those. So we got 14 questions from various firms. We provided a written response to that by July 3rd. So we actually posted that on that Friday before 4th of July. And so we list the question and then we list the answer right after it. So again, everybody has to acknowledge that they received that addendum when they put their proposal together, so that they acknowledge that they've received that and have read that.
Is that available for us to read, the questions and responses?
Yep, I can send that out as well.
Thank you.
We will be sending out an addendum tomorrow too. There was, we found another error to correct within the document. So we're sending out some additional information on, I guess it wasn't an error, but additional information on our sales and use tax policy, which not everybody understands too well. So we'll send
How
that
many
out tomorrow.
addendums have been sent out?
Just the one so far that I mentioned. So I'll put out the second one tomorrow, and I'll send that as well.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
So the proposals are due at 2 p.m. on Thursday of this week. So there's absolutely no room for late proposals. If you read through this, you can see that the onus is on them to make sure they're here by 2 p.m. We do not, for proposals, we don't read them aloud at the time. We simply take them over in our finance department, and then they date and timestamp them as they're received. And then probably on Friday, we'll go through them, make sure all the pieces are in there, and then you'll receive them. I'll scan them and everything, and then early next week, you'll receive copies of those. So you can see there, late proposals are not accepted. Sole responsibility of the respondent to ensure it's received by the city. This paragraph here just talks about, so they're not allowed to contact staff after the RFP goes out. So, you know, they had their time for questions. That's why we met with them before this all started, to see if they had any questions, get their input. But after that RFP is released, they're not able to make any kind of contact with the city. All right, this is some information about, so this was interesting. I worked with community development on this. So there's actually, this is actually, I believe it's on our website even, is that we have an estimated about 15,500 residential housing units in the city. But when you count just, which is what the proposal is to serve, is single family, duplex, and triplex, there's about 9,600. So this was one of the questions from the vendors, was why is there such a difference between the 15,500 and the 9,600? And those are actually all either condos above, you know, this size, or they're apartment buildings. So we have quite a significant amount of those types of dwellings within the city. It was surprising to me that that was such a large number there. But this is what we're focused on, is serving about 9,600 households. So when we talk about units or households, a single family counts as 1, a duplex counts as 2. So they would each receive their own bin if they're a duplex, and they would each be billed separately for that, for their service. The same with the triplex. Above that, typically we're getting into, you know, where they have a small dumpster or something else, and where there's just probably not enough room to have individual containers. They're using something else for their garbage collection. That's why we focus just on these. Okay. Was there a question? Okay. So our goals and objectives for the program is truly to start, you know, using an education process to not only minimize how much waste we're generating, but also how do we, you know, just reduce our consumption overall. As you can, as we'll go through this, you can see we have a pretty aggressive or frequent communication effort to try and keep in front of people what's recyclable, you know, and trying to do more of that education effort to hopefully get people on board with just using less and buying less in general, and increasing their amount of recycling where possible. So that's the second bullet, is increasing not only the amount, but the types of material that are being recycled. Providing consistent and reliable collection services. So we heard this over and over again, is that, you know, sometimes, you know, it's a missed pickup once a week, but frequently, you know, it's people several weeks in a row getting missed pickups. And so it's a hassle to have to call in. They're not getting through when they do call in. And so being able to pick up every house on every block or within the alley, hopefully will lead to much more reliable service. Having better customer service when people call to resolve issues and respond to questions. And, you know, we'll see, but providing overall financial savings to city residents. Allowing for the collection of large items and reducing the number of collection vehicles on the city streets and in city alleys, so that we're ultimately reducing wear and tear to the streets, improving safety, and reducing vehicle emissions. All right, here's the schedule we'll walk through. So we're up to the proposal deadline here, and you can see that's really just part of the process. We will, as a group, the committee will be working through the review over the next month to month and a half. Our goal would be is either in late August or early September is to shortlist and notify those respondents. We would interview those shortlisted folks. If we get 5 proposals, you can bring them all back. If you want to just move forward with 2, you can do that as well. So really this is quite flexible. Then once we have a better idea and if there was interest in moving forward, we would schedule additional public meetings similar to what we did last fall. And then also start having some discussions with City Council about next steps. So we would want to roll that out to the community so that they have the same information about what's this going to cost, how do we get this, you know, what's the level of service, all of that stuff, so that they can weigh in as well and give their feedback to the City Council before any kind of decision is made. So we would select the contractor, we would narrow that down to 1, and then again have more discussions with council about, you know, if they want to move forward or not, and ultimately if they move forward, it would be a contract approval with that firm sometime late in the year or early January, and then approximately June 1st would be rolling out that service. All right, any questions on that timeline? So the intent is still to get, you know, public input, that this isn't the last time that we go out to the public and explain this and get their input on what the actual proposal is once we have more details now after the proposals come in. All right, so the idea would be is that they develop a 5-day schedule to service the entire city. So right now, collection supposedly is only done on Mondays and Wednesdays. This would allow for collection on each day, but probably grouped by area of the city. And all collection will be day certain, meaning if you're in a particular area, we would be able to communicate to you that you always have Thursday pickup. And so they do route analysis to see how many houses they can serve based on the streets, the alleys, that sort of thing. So, but the idea is that that doesn't bounce around, that you can count on that. We do want to make sure that we're weighing all of the material that's collected. So we want to get on a monthly basis all the tonnage reported, both for all recyclable materials as well as for the garbage. What we're doing
Maria, I do have a question on that.
Sure.
I know it's not common in the United States, and maybe it's not even available anywhere, but nearly a decade ago, so I'm a software developer, but you know, run a small software company. I was hired to audit the software for an Ireland-based trash collection company. And even all the way back then, they provide, and I actually looked them up today to see if they're still doing it, but they provide, they're called CityBin, and they provide waste, recycling, and compost service. And they actually measure what they pick up from every individual residence for waste, for recycling, for compost on every pickup. And then every resident can go to their website and see how much they've actually had taken, and they can get recommendations, you know, on improvements, and then they actually can pay based on what their pickups are. I mean, there's all sorts of different things that can be done with that. But was it even considered to ask for measuring at the at the pickup location the quantities?
That was not, I was not aware of that. So I think, you know, we could certainly explore that with the selected provider if that kind of technology is available. It's kind of like when you were talking about that, it's like Excel. I don't know if you've ever gotten that in your bill where they show how you compare to your neighbors. It's really
exactly.
interesting. Yeah. We can certainly explore that too. And as you saw in here, we're asking people to, or the companies, to be innovative. So give us your innovative ideas of how you stand out from somebody else. And so, you know, I think that's definitely open to talking about further as we meet with them.
I love that idea, Carson. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, when we were digging through their software and seeing how they operated, I was amazed that we'd never heard of it here. And this was literally like a decade ago. So, and you know, they're still doing it there. I'm sure that actually, I don't know their scale right now, but that, you know, it's certainly possible. And you know, they have special trucks where one truck has 3 compartments to it. So one truck picks up waste, recycling, and compost, and they measure, you know, at each residence. So, you know, I don't know if it's possible, maybe not, but it's kind of sad that that's been available in other places for over a decade. And, you know, we've never even heard of it over here.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if it might be challenging for us too because of alley and street pickup, because, you know, that seems to be one of the biggest things that everybody wants. And so if you're having to, you know, calculate it at each front of the house and back of the house, because if somebody puts recycling out the front and garbage out the back, it's a challenging for sure. But I love it. I think that's so cool.
I think too, just in doing some of the research, I think Europe as a whole is probably more advanced on us than in maybe not only in terms of collection, but just being more conscious of how much land it takes to dispose of things. And the costs are much higher over there because they have less land to devote to landfills. That'd be my take. But yeah, let's definitely explore that. And I can do some research too. So we have the Oxford Transfer Station, which is the closest station for us. We don't own that, but we wanted to kind of even the scales, if you will, and say that because it's owned by Waste Management, they could actually, you know, potentially change those tipping fees in terms of trying to adjust their costs that they would provide to us. And so what we're saying is, let's take that out of the mix. We're going to pay for that directly, regardless of who the company is. And so they have to truly base their costs on what it would cost to service the company. Does that, or service the city? Does that make sense? Okay.
Can you explain tipping fees a little bit?
Yeah, it's a pretty typical of when the city, any city has like either a waste, in this case, it's a waste transfer site or a landfill. So let's say I used to work in Commerce City. We had the Tower Road landfill that was managed by, I think it was Republic. So any trash that was hauled there, the city would actually get a tipping fee based on the volume, because then it was put towards like roads and infrastructure that might be degraded because of the additional wear and tear on the roads as they're hauling everything to and from. So we get that too. We have that within our municipal code because the Oxford Station is actually within Englewood. So it's kind of a circular, so we pay ourselves essentially. So we'll pay for the tipping fees. Right now, let's say Waste Management collects your garbage. They would take it to the Oxford Transfer Station, and then they would pay the city for that load, a certain percentage, that tipping fee. So we get that cost back. In this case, we're saying, you know, we'll still pay those. Again, it'll come back to us eventually, but we don't want that to be a part of their equation, if you will, and how they determine their rates.
How come when, so in the RFP, if recycling load is rejected, the tipping fee isn't handled the same way?
Because they may, most of the recycling is taken up to the, what's called a MRF, a material recycling facility. And so it's probably not real close. And so to have them drag it back down here, you know, is just going to drive up the cost. So they would take it to the nearest facility because they'll reject it at the recycling facility. So they'll take it to the nearest dump or landfill and dispose of it there. So we have to kind of, that's the trade-off, is we don't want to have them haul it all the way back to the Oxford.
I see. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. The MRF that most people use is up in Commerce City, actually. All right.
So I have a question relative to the use of the transfer station. As I understand it, Waste Management owns that Oxford transfer station. So does that potentially give them a competitive advantage in the bid, since they're basically paying themselves, as opposed to the rate structure could be different for one of their competitors?
That's what I'm trying to take out of the mix. So
okay,
yeah, because not that they would do this, but let's say they would, you know, potentially add on costs, or say that even though we might only require X for tipping fee, they could increase that and then make it more difficult for other haulers to, or more costly for them to dump there. And so that's how they could work that price back. So that's why I'm saying, let's take that out of the mix. And so it's truly apples to apples for each company.
but the tipping fee isn't the only variable, right? The trash company also has to pay Waste Management to haul the trash from the transfer station to a dump somewhere, right?
Yeah, so they do pay a fee when they drop there.
Okay.
But we
and that would
can't
be a
really
fee that
control
potentially Waste Management might not have because they own the transfer site.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Just making sure I understood.
I'm sorry. So I didn't mean to cut anybody off. So how much are the tipping fees in Inglewood?
I'm not 100% sure. I'll have to look that up. I can, I forget if it's so much per load or if it's so much like based on weight or volume. So I'll look that up and get back to you guys on that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And so how much does that, yeah, if our volume, how much dollar amount are we really talking about when we talk about tipping fees?
Could I just ask you, where does that money go, or who receives those tipping fees?
I believe it just goes right now into the general fund.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And to Stephen's point, if we're forcing it to go through the waste management facility, and we've taken the tipping fees out of, you know, the scale to try to make it more even, but the actual cost for the dumping is the advantage to waste management.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what is the reason we force it to go through there, rather than what if another provider had another dump that they could offer, you know, the same level of service for cheaper overall?
Yeah, I think, and this was suggested actually by one of the other waste haulers, is, you know, there's not really any that are close enough to make that viable, that what you just described. So they instead recommended this approach to try and level the playing field with waste management. But even Denver hauls here for pretty much anything to the Oxford transfer station, because on the west side of town, as opposed to taking it to either, there's Dad's, which is kind of over on the, kind of off of E470, or up to the Tower landfill. So there's pretty limited options. And so the hauling costs become exorbitant over the difference, you know, between what waste management would cost for bringing it to such a nearby location.
Okay, that makes sense. So they do have an advantage, but it's also kind of a physical advantage that we can't get away from because they're the closest.
When they're actually in our city, yeah. All right.
Especially because if they had to take every time a truck filled up and they had to drive down to U470 or something like that, or Tower Road, that'd take, you know, forever anyway. So it does make sense.
Yeah, totally.
So and we'll get into this a little bit here, but so we're asking for them to price two options. So one would be is that we just straight away give a 96-gallon tote to each household, and one for garbage and one for recycling. The other option is doing where people can select their size, 32, 64, 96, and pay accordingly. So you'd pay less for a 32 gallon than you would for a 96. So I'm asking them to price both of those. And we'll get into that in a little bit here when we go through the cost proposals. The contractor will own the containers, and they'll deliver the containers to each residence prior to the start of the contract period. The contractor shall replace any lost, stolen, or damaged containers at no additional cost, one time per household for the term of the contract. So we know things happen. You know, it either gets somebody steals, some kids steal it, or, you know, who knows what happens. And so we're saying that once during that 5 years, they have to replace that or do that for each household. Beyond that, there is a price for the homeowner that would be required. And that's also in the cost proposal, so we know how much that would be.
Why was it put in that the contractor has to own them?
It's, I guess most other cities are doing that as well. So if let's say we own them, then in 5 years, if we switch to a different provider, we'd have to use different containers. So they
I was
might
thinking
not,
more like, what if the citizens had the option to use their own?
then they won't be able to be picked up by that that vehicle that has the arm to pick up the units. So really,
I see, it's for automation.
The efficiency really comes from not having a garbage collector where they're hauling and lifting up, you know, metal cans or anything else to dump in the back. It's really about having that arm to empty them themselves.
Thank
So
you.
there's still usually 1 or 2 people on each truck, but they just from a, you know, ergonomics thing, it's very hard on people to be a trash collector. And so they're more and more going to the automatic collection. And so to do that, they have to have those uniform containers.
Is it addressed? I didn't see it in the RFP, whether they're going to like charge citizens rental for the cans, or is it just they provide them and they're not allowed to pass that charge on to citizens?
The here I'll pull up the let's see, the cost proposals here. And we can walk through that. So we'll start with what's called pay as you throw. So this is the spreadsheet that they actually have to fill out and submit with their proposal. So let me start out here. Oops, sorry. So you can see for this is again pay as you throw. So 32 is probably going to be less than the 64, the 96. So we're asking them for weekly service to pick up the 32 gallon and dispose of that. How much would that be per household per month? Then there is a lease cost associated with that. And that's, again, that pretty much covers the cost for that, you know, if they have to replace it, if it's damaged, that sort of thing. So that should be relatively very low, but that is worked in there within that cost. Then there's a 32 gallon for recycling, which is collected bi-weekly. And again, there's a lease cost associated with that. And then for this basic service, we're saying we want alley or street bulk item pickups 2 times per year. And so how much would that cost? And if you add those items together, this would be the per household per month cost from the contractor. So we did include that, but I'm anticipating those will be fairly low. I'm sorry, Marcy, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. So can they use these forks from the trucks in the alleys? I mean, does the alleys give them enough room to use those forks?
Yeah, not on the sides. So you may have seen a lot of those trucks have the side arms. So it's too narrow for that. So they have to have the trucks that have the arms in the back of the truck.
But they can pick up from the alley with the forks?
They can, yes. I
Okay.
confirmed that with them. That was part of our pre-conversation. So in some cases, like right now, you know, they don't have that equipment, but they would have to acquire that equipment to service this contract.
So that's why it's not an option now that they can do that, like tomorrow or next week?
Yeah, that's like why I believe it's Waste Connections has said, you know, we're not doing alley service because they don't want to invest in the, I'm assuming, they don't want to invest in the equipment to service, you know, the number of contracts that they have within Englewood.
Mhm. Do you not kind of find that kind of strange that we have to pay for their equipment? Like you said, we have to pay a fee for their trash bins?
Yeah, again, I anticipated it's going to be pretty low, but it is, yeah, it is the cost to, you know, replace that, to service those, you know, as different, they also typically have a barcode on them. So they are tied to the property. So let's say somebody moves out, they need to stay there. Sometimes people take them with them. And so it's difficult to get them back. So they're also, you know, anticipating a certain number of loss that needs to be replaced. So I'm sure they work that in.
Also, in the current system, you're, at least I know I am paying for it currently. Apologize for my dogs.
Yeah, I paid Republic a deposit when they delivered mine. But my understanding is I'll get that back when I finish service with them.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we pay a fee to Waste Management, so, or did at the beginning, I believe, when we got our new bins. So I think it's pretty standard.
We use our own bins, but it does look nicer in other cities when they all have them out. It's to look less cluttered for the neighborhood, for what it's worth.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question on large item pickup if we're done with the bins.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, is it 2 events citywide per year where you say this is our date for the whole city? Or is it each resident picks what day they want it twice a year?
The way we were talking about it, I did talk extensively with them about this. It'd probably be like, because they need more than one truck, they couldn't service the whole city. None of them said they could service the whole city on a particular day. So it might be, again, by days of the week. So let's say you're a Monday, you might have that first Saturday in June. And then the Tuesdays have the second Saturday in June or something like that. So there would need to be some communication around that, because they just couldn't simply do everybody all at once on the same day.
Got it.
Unless we had it where everybody was hauling it to a particular location, then they could probably set that up. But I think that's kind of a hassle. The way we went with it, why we wanted to do it in the alley, was to minimize, or the street, was to minimize the inconvenience to the residents and to get as much out on the curb as possible or in the alley. And hopefully neighbors could help other neighbors if they had some heavy stuff to move, as opposed to trying to find a truck and, you know, load a big dresser or a big mattress into that and bring it somewhere. Then people are probably going to say, why do it? So we think this is hopefully more convenient, and we'll work towards that aesthetics element.
Maria, I just have one question. You said that right now that the pickup is right now on Monday and Wednesdays, but if we go with this format, it would be Monday through Friday. Is there a reason why right now it can't be Monday through Friday?
That's just the way it's written in the code. And I guess I can only assume that they wanted to kind of restrict so much, you know, because of the way the system is working or is set up, that you could essentially on the same block have multiple different people picking up, that they wanted to try and limit the amount of traffic on the street by restricting it to only 2 days. And that the other 3 days that basically there'd be, you know, no truck traffic driving down your street from
I guess I just know in my neighborhood, I see waste management like at 4 p.m. I see them at 10 p.m. I mean, sometimes I see them on my street 3 times on a Wednesday, and it's like, why are they continuing to go around the block?
Yeah.
You know, at intermittent hours of the day.
And we've heard that too, is not only multiple trips, but also not on Mondays or Wednesdays. So, you know, they're sneaking in on Tuesday or Thursday to pick up some different people. We've heard about that as well.
Yeah, thank you.
So so if somebody wanted, let's say you wanted an additional trash can, that you had a large family, you could also rent that, lease that per month, but that would be an additional cost to you personally. Or if you wanted a second recycling container, you could do that as well. But the base program is 1-in-1 for each household.
Is the plan that the city would do the billing for this?
Yes. So on your existing water and sewer bill that you get quarterly, we would add the cost for trash service to that. So if we have that where you have a second container, or if you opt in for like composting or anything else, then you would have those services listed on your bill.
And there would be an administrative fee attached to that?
There would, yes. We'll get into that at the next meeting.
Okay.
So there's an additional bag pickup. So sometimes you have, you know, additional trash that doesn't fit in the container. This was recommended again by by the waste haulers, was that we would sell stickers. We could probably do something online where you print something out, or you come into City Hall to buy those, but that it's basically so much per bag if you had additional trash for, you know, and then you could buy some of these, have them available at home for those weeks that you had additional trash. So the trash hauler would have to then get out of the truck and pick those up physically and put them in the back of the container or the truck. We also wanted to provide door to curb service. So I know we've heard from some of our elderly and disabled folks that they don't know if they could move the trash can from the curb to their garage back and forth, especially if it's full. And so this would be an additional cost that you could opt in as well to pay for that, where the garbage person would actually go up to your garage or wherever it was placed. It wouldn't be inside a building or the garage, but that they could take it from there, empty it, and then return it back to that same spot for an additional cost per household. And that's something that we can look at, you know, in terms of, is there for either, for those folks who would put in that, who would fit in the category, would that be something that the overall program could either, you know, pay for a portion of, or pay for a majority of the cost to offer that to people, as opposed to making them pay 100%, just something to think about. We are also talking about, you know, trying to, right now we have different companies servicing different buildings. We'd like to kind of uniform that and make, again, that all the city buildings would have their trash and recycling collected by this company at the same time, since they're in the vicinity. Again, trying to limit the number of vehicles that are within we have some contracts that apparently we would have to begin that not until 2022 because of our existing contracts that are in place for a couple of facilities. All right, and that's just the acknowledgement that they understand this, so they'd have to sign that. And then you see here, this last sentence talks about that consumer price index and how that's affects the compensation for the contractor. Oh, see, there you see it again there, where I wrote 4% but typed in 3%. So that was clarified in the addendum that it's 3%. So we'll
Just
jump-
real quick, since you pointed out that conflict, there was one other one that was similar to that on branches bound together. In one place it says 25 pounds, in another it says 35 pounds.
Oh, okay. Good catch. I will clarify that in my addendum tomorrow. I can do a search on that and find that. So this was the second base proposal, again, where everybody would get basically a 96-gallon container for trash and a 96-gallon container for recycling. Trash would be collected weekly, recycling would be collected bi-weekly, and then we'd still have the 2 large item pickups per year. So really all this does is it simplifies everything. So we would still allow then, let's say we distributed these and somebody for whatever reason wanted a 32-gallon just because maybe they couldn't manage it or they didn't have enough room in their garage, we would allow them to have the 32-gallon, and we've made provisions that the contractor would need to deliver that, but they'd still be charged, everybody would be charged the same amount, regardless of your size. So we anticipate, you know, probably some people would want to take advantage of that, again, just for the size considerations, but there wouldn't be any price discount associated with that. Same things again for if you needed an additional container, the stickers, door to curb service. And then you see here, change out to 32 or 64 gallon. So we're saying that the first time is included in the program. So let's say you get the 96 gallon and it's like, oh, it's way too big for me. They will give you a 32 or 64 gallon, but then any subsequent requests would be charged each time to each household. And where this, I didn't even realize this or think about it, but some people who kind of sometimes want to game the system, they'll, you know, request a smaller container in the winter if they're snowbirds. But in this case, because we're charging everybody the same amount per year, that kind of gets away from that. Same thing with the city collection and the acknowledgements. And then we'll just talk about the large item events. So we wanted to also look at what are some different options for doing large item pickups. So we're saying that these are the types of items that they would have to take. Extra trash bags, sofas, couches, chairs, mattresses, dressers, toilet sinks, large toys, bicycles and scooters, carpets and rug, exercise equipment, construction debris, and pallets. And then also large metal appliances, but not the type like, so I showed there stoves and dryers, but refrigerators, you can see here, Freon containing appliances would be optional. So all these items above here, they would have to take in the large item pickup. These, they will give us a price for, and they have to say either yes or no. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I just have a question about the yard waste. So in the 20 years I've been here, every time I've ever had to trim trees, I've bound them up and left them out with the trash, and they've always been taken by whatever service I've had. I've gone through a few services because they keep getting bought up, and I've never been concerned about when I put those out. Is this to say that that would no longer be something you could do at any time?
Well, you could, but they'd have to fit in your 96-gallon bin. So you couldn't set them on the side unless you put the sticker on there. So everything has to fit within the 96-gallon or your whatever size container you have. So if you have branches, you know, they can fit in there, but then you'd have to fit your trash in around those, or use the sticker to have an additional bundle on the side that they would take.
Yeah, I would definitely consider that a reduction in service to what is currently available.
Okay.
I agree, Carson.
Okay. And then if there are times when you need to pay, when let's say it's your week past for that, you know, and it won't be happen again until like October, you want to get rid of some other items, we are asking them to give us prices for what it would be if you just called them up and said, hey, and how can I get rid of this rug? How much would it cost for me? That way the price is set. You would know what that is before you called them, or what you would get charged if they came and took that from you. Okay, so we're going to get prices on that as well. All right. I'm going to go back to the RFP. And then I'm going to go just a little bit more here. That was the majority of the detail that I wanted to go through. And then this is kind of the last piece, but the program opt-out. So the city, we are going, based on the feedback that we got, is that, you know, some people just don't want to use the city service. And so we're saying that that the city would allow customers to opt out, they wouldn't need to participate in this, but they also need to have proof in writing that they've paid for alternative service. So a lot of the comments that we get is that, oh, my neighbor's dropping their trash in my bin. So right now you have to pay for your own service. And so instead of them paying for their own, they're using their neighbors, or they're just dropping in the alley or whatever. And so part of this is that we want everybody to comply and have service. That's the key. You know, if you feel that strongly that you don't want to use the city service, then you do have an opportunity to opt out of that.
And just to add on that, the city code already requires that there be trash service for everyone. So it's not, that wouldn't be a new requirement. The current code requires that.
That's correct, Jeff. Yeah. And
is that
like
a one-time verification that you have alternative service, or do you check in on occasion? In other words, could someone sign up for a month but then cancel for the rest of the year because they already proved they have it?
That's a good point. So I think as we talk about enforcement, you know, in general, that's one of the elements we're going to have to follow up on. You know, is people putting their cans away, making sure that the people who opt out truly have other service. It's all of that stuff, you know, that's going to become part and parcel with this program, is how do we make sure that people are basically following the rules.
So Maria, anyone can opt out if they wish.
That's correct.
Okay, and how would that, how do you, I mean, opt out? Do you notify the city, or?
Yeah, you'd have.
How would that work?
Let's say you had a contract with a different company.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to send us your bill or some sort of contract and prove to us that you have alternate service. And
Okay.
I think to Christine's point is, how do we, you know, prove that that's more than just for the month, you know, that it covers the next year or something, or at least 6 months, something to that effect. And so we need that in writing, and then we would not, we would still charge the administrative fee, but you wouldn't have to pay for the service then.
I'm sorry, why would you have to pay for an administrative fee if we're not going through the city?
Because that's, and I'll get into it at the next meeting, but the intent would be is that covers the communication, the education, and the administration basically of the program. So if have to have staff who reviews that bill, opts you out, maintains that list of opt-outs, there is a cost associated with it.
Do you know how much that cost would be yet, or is that still in the works?
That's still in the works, but I will present draft costs at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
And basically all the elements that entails as well.
Okay.
Okay. And as I say here, so once those folks opt out, then the city is responsible for coordinating, communicating with those residents. So it's not up to the the vendor to do that.
Okay.
I think that was
You know,
about-
Maria, I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep going back to this, but I mean, when you have say, Republic as your trash pickup, I mean, that they also include an administrative fee somewhere in that bill.
I'm sure,
So
yeah. Mhm.
we would be paying 2 administrative fees.
Yep, for them to do whatever administrative they have to do on their end, as well as what the city would have to do.
I mean, do you think that's fair?
It is, if, you know, I think that's part of the program, you know, that we're trying to serve everyone. And so there is costs associated with that. And whether they're exactly fair or not, we feel that everybody should pay for those administrative fees, regardless of whether you're in the program or not. But that's certainly something, you know, if the group wants to recommend against that or recommend something different, that's, you know, this is certainly the time for us to talk about that, or we can get into it more at the next meeting when we talk about administrative. So that's just staff's perspective. You certainly all have the right to, you know, recommend something different.
And that would be at the next meeting to recommend something different, correct?
Yeah, or, you know, we'll talk about it over the next series of meetings. It doesn't have to be
Okay.
next week. Yep. But
Okay, thank you.
so to whether it's that topic or anything else, Marcy, that's up to the committee. It's how they want to structure that, you know, make recommendations. If you said, let's do 3 annual large item pickups, you know, we can certainly talk about that too. So anything's
Okay.
on the
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. So we just list here what our needs are in terms of the different buildings, so that they have a very good idea of exactly what they're getting into. And so we would, what we call subscription compost collection. So that means that if you want to have compost, you would pay an additional fee for that. And so the price for that would be spelled out, and then the people could opt in. Hey, I want compost. You would get an additional container for that cost, as well as an additional, and it would only, I think that is year round. We would do that for composting. And then for yard waste collection, we could do that May through November for an additional cost. So that would only be as if you elect to pay additional for that service. Does that make sense? For composting yard waste. And if you know, composting is a little bit different, where you can put food in there, you can put different types of things to be recycled, whereas this is truly just yard waste that would be in compostable containers. So, or bunches of bundles of twigs, leaves, grass clippings, that sort of thing.
Denver has add-on compost, right?
Correct, yeah.
And do you know off the top of your head what residents pay for that if they opt in?
I don't, but I will certainly look that up. I know they've had less people than they anticipated signing up for that, which is interesting. Or it's, you know, much more spotty in terms of where they're getting participation throughout the city. We are requiring that all yard waste materials shall be transferred to a licensed facility that will process the compostable materials into other products. So if you're gonna pay for composting of that green waste or food waste, that has to go to a facility, not just to a landfill. Here we get into neighborhood yard waste events. So this would be as if we wanted to take it somewhere, as opposed to doing that at the alley or curb. So this would be where we might, you know, set up something at a park or the service center where people would bring their materials down there. It was an option considered, and so we wanted to get the prices on that, again, just for the group to consider. And then this was also brought up, was instead of recycling at the curb, should we instead do drop-off, like down at the service center again, set up a drop-off recycling facility where you'd have to bring your recycling there? Obviously less convenient, but probably at a lower cost than doing it every other week at your property.
Are you, with this, you're not suggesting that would be the only option, right?
No, it's just one of many that we're getting prices on. Yeah. So these are all basically, these were the additional services that I'm asking for them to price out. So if we didn't, let's say, oh, you know, composting was too much or was such a high price, you know, we wouldn't necessarily make that part of that bundle that we would recommend to move forward with. Or if we still thought, you know, recycling at the curb was the best, then we wouldn't do the drop-off recycling facility. So it's kind of a one or the other, and we can mix and match those different elements together. Okay, and then this just gets into how they have to submit their proposals. So there's a cover letter. The overall length of the document is 25 pages. So, and then they can add these exhibits 1 through 6 as an addition on top of the 25 pages. So again, you know, some people can write a book. We're limiting them to those 25 pages to make them be somewhat succinct in how they describe their proposal. There would be a cover letter, the certification, which is one of the exhibits, and then really this is the heart of it, is how are they going to develop a work plan as to how they're going to service the city. And you know, that's really where we're going to see the text and the detail come out as to how they're going to communicate with citizens, roll out the program, and going forward, just working with the community to make this program successful. We want to see their customer service plan, how they respond to people in terms of resolving issues. And then we do have a section for alternate services or methods or programs. And this is where we want them to be creative, and we're encouraging them to come up with alternate proposals because they're really, you know, they're the experts at this. So do they have any ideas that we haven't thought about that could maybe make service better? And then what are the costs associated with that? They would include this price proposal, all of those sheets that we just looked at. And then there are very specific company information, things that they have to talk about. Who are they going to have on this contract? What's their other experience prior to this? And then they do have to require or provide references so that we can call either other communities or areas that they've serviced and talk about how good has their service been. So I think that was the majority of it I wanted to go over. And then the rest just gets into more detail about how we select, you know, again, as I talked about before, that's really going to be up to us as to how we shortlist those and interview people. And then ultimately, this gets into how do you award a contract, that sort of thing. Here's the selection criteria. So we'll be going through that. And so it is quantitative based. I just jumped over this. So for qualifications, you know, you can give up to 10 points, this sort of thing. Our proposed work plan, we're weighting that heavily, as you can see, with 35 points there. So they would get some score out of 100. Again, and that doesn't mean, like, let's say somebody gets a 90 and somebody gets an 80. That doesn't mean that we can't go with the 80, but we would have to justify that as why you think they're better than the other. But this is where we get into discussions and, you know, the merits of each proposal. But at least gives us a starting point to say, who do we think collectively is a better option for the city? You can see here we're weighing price and cost pretty heavily as well. with 30 points.
What is personnel?
That would be
In this
who
case?
they actually have on the team. So they have to give so it's resumes, you know, who's actually going to be working on this contract so that they have experience in how they do this. So we would weigh those. All right, and the rest of this is just kind of the contract and the attachments. Did anybody have any questions on any of the other materials, or do you want me to go through in any more detail?
I do have a question about the penalties, because there's quite a list of penalties spelled out if they, you know, especially like customer service related. Is the plan that the city just collects that and keeps it, or if a citizen is, you know, massively inconvenienced and the fee is leveraged, does the citizen get their penalty for their time being sucked up?
The intent right now, the way that it's written, is that that would come back to the city into the program. So it would not go back to the citizen. But again, we can talk about that.
I like the idea of reevaluating that to see if there is a mechanism for someone who's inconvenienced to the citizen themselves actually get the fee. I think that's a good idea.
I would agree with that.
What's the
As a
process for
citizen-
this committee seeking clarifying questions from the respondents?
I don't know if that's addressed in here. I think that would be part of our next step. We could certainly build that in, you know, once we evaluate that, probably shortlist them. And then we could ask questions of them before we do the interviews.
And I was just going to say that as someone who occasionally has been known to complain about the service I receive from various entities, this schedule and knowing what was decided on my case would be very important to me if I was to call with a complaint.
Okay, good to know. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to stop sharing, and that doesn't mean we can't come back to this in the future either. But I did want to just look at a couple of these other things. So I did include
How many proposals have been received so far?
none. And that's fairly typical, as they'll wait until the end to submit. So we included a map of all the alleys so people can see those. The green is the unpaved, the red is the paved. And so I'll ask the group, do you want me to go through the slide presentation? We've got about 20 minutes left, or would you like to move into more of the rest of the agenda?
When you say slides, what do you mean? That questionnaire?
Yeah, the results of the survey we conducted last fall.
I think the survey is pretty informative. It's worth taking the time to review that, but I'm willing to go longer.
Okay.
If we can try to complete the agenda.
Okay. I will pull that up. So again, this was done last fall. So you can see we posted this, it's on the city website in early December. We got probably about, I think total, if I go to the next slide. So we actually got about 740 respondents. So out of, assuming, because we don't know this, but that only one person in a household responded and only one household responded, you know, the same person didn't reply multiple times. We got about 740 responses out of 9,600. That's really good. So my battery is running low. I'm going to reconnect here. But you can see that overall people are fairly happy. So there's 63% of people who are either satisfied or very satisfied with their service right now, which is great. This shows, and this again was taken last year, but you can see here and this was based on their actual responses, was who is currently servicing them. So American Disposal at that time had just acquired Lies. So we had a lot of Lies responses, and we lumped them in with American Disposal.
I mean, if the majority is satisfied with their trash service, I guess I don't understand why there's a need for a one-haul trash company.
Well, I think again, we're exploring that. You know, the idea is that nothing's set in stone at this point, but that there is, 36% who aren't happy either. And so we're responding to that group who has expressed concerns about, and I think if I jump ahead here a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
would you be, that's the recycle. So would you be supportive of a change to a one service provider? So 76% of the people who responded said yes. So even though they're maybe okay with their current service, they're interested at least, or would be supportive of that change. And so I think that's why we're moving forward, is those people who haven't gotten great service, and that overall, I think people are interested at least in looking at this.
Do you think that's a fair comparison when you take into consideration there's 35,000 people that live in Inglewood? And I'm sorry, if you went back, there was only like around 700 people that were surveyed.
It's a pretty big sample size.
Out of 35,000 population, you think that's a good sample size?
That's the number of people
Yes.
that responded, not the number of people that were surveyed.
I mean, I tried to do a survey and it wouldn't take, so. And I've heard that from a few other people too, so I don't know what happened, but it just seems like that's kind of low for 35,000, a city with 35,000 population.
But is 35,000 counting kids and so forth? I remember seeing we had 15,000 total households and 9,600 something single family duplex and triplex households. We need to make a lot of assumptions about the respondents.
Sure.
I think we temporarily lost Maria.
I guess the point I would make is like, what harm is there in exploring and seeing the proposals and seeing what would happen with this?
Absolutely no harm.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Hopefully Maria's battery picks up again here soon.
Yeah, she said she was going to reconnect, so I assume she was plugging in and reconnecting.
On the satisfied piece, I remember I took the survey, and when I was taking it, I was like, yeah, I haven't had a missed pickup. Well, actually I have had one a while ago, but I was thinking more of the service. I'm not satisfied with the price I pay right now, which I think there were questions about that later on. I was thinking more of the service overall. Do they pick it up and get it done?
I think some of the providers have lowered their service since that survey came out as well, because more of them have stopped alley service since I originally saw that survey.
Yeah.
Wasn't
The
it
alley.
bought by Waste Connections?
I couldn't hear that question.
Sorry about that. I think American Disposal was also acquired by Waste Connections, so we're down another company in the mix.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I had to reconnect to my computer, so I don't have my camera available anymore, but I died there for a minute. So yeah, so you're saying that some of these even now have been taken over by other companies, I think.
Yeah, I think it's hard to tell, but I originally had Lee's, which I always thought it was Lies until they went away, and I spoke to them and found out that it's Lee's. That was actually a family name. But they got bought by American, and then I believe they've been now bought by Waste Connections.
Yes, I think so. Okay. So this shows the percentage of people that recycle currently, 67%, and that jumps up to 79%. If that was included, I think some of the companies now actually charge additional for recycling, so you have to opt in for that. And then these next two slides just shows, so we asked them, how much do you pay for your service on a monthly basis? And so you can see here that that's kind of grouped between $15 and roughly $35. That was the majority of the responses, or even up to 40. So then what we did was we took that and broke that down even further on the next slide to go from that 15 up to that 35 and say, where do you fall within that? So it looks like, I haven't taken the average, but it's probably somewhere around $25 is the majority of folks. So this will be good data to compare, to see what we get in comparison with what the prices are from the vendors. Again, this would be, are they supportive of a change? And here's where, again, we took this into consideration. What factors would be most important to you in garbage service, and we worked these back into the RFP. So obviously cost was important to quite a few people. So, 80%. And so that's why we made that points as important or as large as it was in that overall scoring, because cost is an important factor to people. Recycling as well, and then the alley pickup. So we made sure all of those elements were in there, the large item pickup, also street pickup. So interestingly, 24% still were very interested in having that on the street side. And then composting, which again, composting, household hazardous waste, and electronics is basically an added service. Then we had 190 of other requests, and I broke those down a little bit further. So of those 190, if there was 5 or more responses, I included them in here. So you can see people like to just mention it again, the alley pickup, but there was a lot of interest in the fewer trucks, less wear and tear, and reliability and consistency. And basically what they were saying when they, and these were, basically you could write in what you wanted here. So even though they might not have used these words, specifically, they were talking about, I want service every week. I don't want to be missed again. I don't want to have the hassle of having to call my company because yet again, they missed my pickup. Choice was important to people, meaning again, that they didn't necessarily want to work with the city program. Composting again. And then you can see some of the other ones here. Use of own cans too. And then anybody less than that was just kind of a single one here and there of comments. So any questions on that? Okay. And again, this is on the city website if you're interested, or I can send, or I guess I did send this to you already. So, so I'll bring back up the agenda. Where is that? Sorry, I'm not the best at Zoom. All right. There we go. All right. So that was the new business. Now I think the idea would be is, I went over the timeline of kind of the overall effort here. So our intense time will really be the rest of July, August, and September. So with that, is there a desire to have a specific meeting schedule, or would you like to just establish, meaning, you know, every other Tuesday, or, you know, every 3 weeks on a Tuesday at a certain time of night? Or would you prefer to just schedule each meeting at the previous meeting? So we'd schedule just the next one right now based on people's schedules, and then go from there. Any feedback on that?
So there was one person that's on the committee that couldn't meet today, is that right?
Correct. There was a couple actually, yeah. But I don't know if that was just on this particular Tuesday or Tuesdays in general.
I'd say at least for the next meeting, I'd probably err towards just scheduling that, because I'm curious to see how many proposals we actually get, because I think that'll dictate the amount of work that needs to be done.
Okay.
I agree.
I think that's fine. I just think that, you know, it should be tentative until we see whether everyone can do it or not, including those who couldn't participate in this one.
Certainly. And I could, you know, kind of what I did last time is send out a couple alternatives. So I would suggest like maybe the last week in July, either that week of the 27th or that early part of the first week of August for us to get back together. So that would give you, you know, a couple of weeks to review the proposals. Or would you need more time than that?
Personally, the first week of August is better for me than the last week of July, because if we meet at the end of the month, there's a potential conflict with Budget Advisory Committee.
Okay.
And you're expecting we're going to have the proposals to read ourselves by when?
Probably early part of next week. So if we did if I got them to you by the 21st, if we looked at August 4th is a Tuesday, the 5th is a Wednesday, and the 6th is a Thursday, maybe we look at the 6th, which would give you about 2.5 weeks to review them. The max we're going to get is 4, because we only had 4 people at the pre-proposal, or the 4 companies.
Would that be prior to the city sending questions back on the proposals?
Yeah, so we would review them. We could compile questions, and then we could send them back out to them after that date.
Yeah, as long as that's early enough for us to participate in what is sent to the companies regarding their proposals, that date works for me if it works for everyone else.
So I'll send out email for the 4th, 5th, and 6th to see what works for everybody, and see if we can get everybody available to attend. And I'll also throw out August 11th as well as an option, just in case. All right. So I'll follow up on some of these research items, as well as send out the addendums, the addenda. Oh, okay. Yeah, Nancy suggested we do a doodle poll. Fancy. All this technology that I don't know how to do. Thank you, Nancy. Yeah, so we'll do that instead of sending emails. So look for that.
What is that?
And then, so would you like to consider doing the chair and co-chair, or do you want to keep that till the next meeting?
I'm thinking the next meeting. What do other?
I think the next meeting would be better.
Okay. That's fine with me. So that'll be on our agenda for next time, and then we'll really start digging into your feedback on the proposals. You know, it'll be kind of an open-ended discussion, so there won't, basically you'll just be able to review the materials, and we'll have a discussion about each of the proposals. We are not making those available to the public right now, so these are confidential just to you at this point. Okay, so if you could, I ask that you don't share those with anybody at this point, and that we keep the conversation within this group. The cost proposals will be redacted so that you don't necessarily know who is who until we get a little bit further down the line.
You mean the names of the providers will be, it'll just be.
Correct.
The cost and numbers will be on there.
Yep. All right. Look for that doodle poll in your email, and any other questions before we wrap it up? Well, we're right at 8.
Hey, Maria, if we did have several questions, who do we submit those to? I've got a lot, but I didn't want to muddle the conversation.
Yeah, Kanji, if you want to, you can email those to me, or if you'd like to set up a time where we can talk one-on-one, I'd be happy to do that as well.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, just send me an email and we can find a time that works.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure others of us would be interested in your questions too and the answers, Kanji. Can we?
They're super secret questions. No, I'm just kidding. I'm happy to share those as well.
Are we, I know that there's rules about public access. Are we able to communicate as a group over email? Or is that not allowed because of public access? Or what are our rules for conducting questions and answers among ourselves?
I think that's fine. You know, again, I would not want to speculate, you know, or say, oh, I think this one's great or whatever, but answering questions about the process, about the proposals, that sort of thing is perfectly fine as a group.
This is Nancy. I would just, and Carson, I know you know this from being on BOA. I would just caution everyone. So like Kanji wants to send, if he sends that to Maria, then she can disseminate it to the entire group. You don't want the perception of having an electronic meeting.
Good point, Nancy.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about.
Yeah, so while Carson and Christine can talk, if you add a third person, then it becomes a meeting.
Okay.
And we just need to make sure that we're very cautious about observing the sunshine laws for open meetings. So I don't mean to contradict Maria at all, but
no, thank you, Nancy. That's why you're here. So thank you.
So yeah, if you have questions, I would say have Maria, if she's okay with that, have Maria be the point person, and then she can send them out to the entire committee.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Okay. I can do that.
So
Thank you. And I would just request that if you do answer questions to anyone, please send it out to the rest of us.
Okay.
Nancy?
Yes, Marcy.
I'm sorry. I don't know what a doodle poll is.
Let me send it out, and then I'll call you and we will walk through it. How about?
Okay.
So it's a mini survey. Which day works best for you? And you're just going to click some buttons. But I'll call you once I send it out. Or actually, Kanaz is going to send it out. But I'll call you, Marcy, and we can. And anybody else, if you need assistance with that, please reach out to me.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't even know what that is.
No, don't apologize. We have our own kind of speak. So,
I guess so. Okay.
No, that's fine.
Nancy.
Cheryl, any comments? I know you've been on the phone.
I've been listening and I'm doing good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. So we'll be in touch early part of next week, and then hopefully we'll be meeting again sometime that first week in August. And meanwhile, reach out with any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
Have a good night.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.